So I'm from Dublin, and I'm an endocrinologist. So for me to be here presenting to this forum is a career highlight by a mile, bar none. So I'd really like to thank the organisers for inviting me, and Hilary in particular. What you've been looking at as you've come in is fat, real-time, confocal microscopy, stained for macrophages, which are the green fellas running around regulating the adipose tissue, and the white one, as you see here, is an invariant, an innate T cell. And when leptin was discovered, we all went, wow, fat makes things. What I would like you to take out of today is that fat, like every other organ in the body, has, like muscle relaxes and contracts, fat has its own systole and diastole, and it's regulated by the immune system, circulating and tissue resident. And the systole is the postprandial war breaks out as we try and put the fat away and store the energy. And the diastole is the fasting state, which we don't give ourselves enough of at all. And I will come back to the innate T cells and how that dynamic regulates weight. So if we could move to the presentation. They're my disclosures. All of it really goes into the research group. And I'm going to talk about the imperatives for prevention, first of all, so a slight reverse on the sequence in the title, and then move on to the novel treatments. And really highlight that we need a better understanding of mechanisms before we can have real novel treatments. Obesity is like no other epidemic. It has come disguised as progress and development, but we now know that it causes everything and makes everything that it causes worse. Probably only aging is the only other thing that does that. It causes 1,000 deaths per million of the population every year, and up to 80% of those are preventable. Death is cheap. Chronic disease is incredibly expensive. And this is a fact, it's not a theory. Weight gain is 90% irreversible for 90% of people. All the studies show us that. So we should not expect to be losing 30% of our starting body weight with conventional measures plus pharmacotherapy. Surgery delivers a little bit more, but this is a fact that isn't really up for debate, and we need to accept that, and I think that has to inform the need for prevention. In the last 30 years, population obesity has doubled, and from my point of view as an adult obesity specialist, the problem is that the BMI over 50 has increased 1,200%, as represented on the right of the picture. In the same period, life expectancy has gone up by 20 years. Extraordinary. And it is possible to age positively. FINA, the International Swimming Organization, had to introduce a new category of world record this year, the 105 to 109-year-old category. So you can age positively, but most people age with increasing numbers of chronic diseases. We have information overload. Last year, nearly 20,000 research articles on obesity. And what's the take-home from those? Well, the socioeconomic separation in childhood obesity is threefold by the age of 3 between the upper and lower socioeconomic groups. There is significant discrimination in all aspects of the obese individual's life, and our experience with bariatric surgery in children is increasing, and it doesn't really get much worse than that. We know that sugar-sweetened drinks drive childhood weight. We know if you modify their intake that children will lose weight. And we know from the EPIC Interact study at the bottom that per can of sugar-sweetened drinks per day, your chance of developing diabetes is increased. That study was released, and the following day GlaxoSmithKline sold their interest in energy drinks and Lucozade Sport and Powerade because corporately they couldn't be causing the disease at one end of their portfolio and treating it at the other end. The food and drinks industry know exactly what they're doing. Corporate Coca-Cola say, we will not market or promote to under 12s. Yet their Names on Bottle campaign, the most successful they've had, uses the top 100 names from 2007. I presented this slide to the EU ministers in Athens, and I put Adonis up because, believe it or not, the Greek Minister for Health name is Adonis, and he's quite good looking. And I have put President Hillary beside him there. But people react to their names on bottles. That's Hillary Hoey now, not Clinton. But people do react to their names on a bottle as adults, as ministers. If you're 7 and you see your name on a bottle, you merge with the bottle. It's your bottle and you must have it. Adonis came up to me after asking, could he have the bottle because he hadn't seen one with his name on it before. Times have changed. Conkers chasing marbles have been replaced by Flappy Bird and Instagram. Facebook, invented 10 years ago, is now a verb, implying action, but as you can see on the right, involving none. We know the younger you put on your weight, the bigger you come into our clinic. So if you put your weight on under the age of 5, you come into my clinic with a BMI of 52. And the later you put it on, the lower you don't go as big. We know from the Finnish studies that obesity tracks over 80% into adulthood. So that means that if this child is allowed to become overweight or obese under the age of 5, they're coming into our clinic 80% chance with a BMI over 50. Now, because obesity causes and worsens the outcome in everything, a few years ago we switched our focus of research to the immune system, the generic immune system. We stopped looking at individual diseases. And we started taking 10 mils of blood from every patient on day 1 of their visit to the clinic. And, we forget that 10 mils contains 20 million, as we call them, white cells. But we need to move away from the concept of white cells, because these we have been analysing by number and function of their cell subtypes. And the immunologists bore me to tears showing me representative dot plots of subpopulations of cells. And the white cells, the ones I mentioned earlier, with the macrophage and the iNKT cell. The iNKT cell is a rare subpopulation of innate T cell. The macrophage is much more common. But in time, I think we're going to see these individual subpopulations as different as kidney and liver. They're mobile, individual organs. And the representative dot plots came alive to me when I was in Rome a couple of years ago, and I saw that, which was in exactly the same conformation as the representative dot plots that the immunologists were showing me. And it was a murmuration of starlings. Now, as far as I was concerned, they were birds. I didn't care whether they were starlings or crows or vultures. But then I was looking at them, and my other half said, well, no, you see the feathers and you see the size. So I was saying, okay, surface markers and size and different subpopulations. So we need to move the way we think about these subpopulations and interrogate them individually, because these white cells, these subpopulations actually circulate together, and they're tissue resident together. We started looking at the natural killer cell, which is the foot soldier of the immune system. It is important for viruses, it's important for cancer. And sure enough, the number of these was reduced in the circulation of our obese subjects. If you asked them to kill, they were much less able to do their job. And if you insulted them, and we insulted them with cigarette smoke, then they were more susceptible to insult. We then moved on to the iNKT, this innate T cell, which was the white one sitting in the fat in the movie. And it's a key cell. It's the general of the army. It's the conductor of the orchestra. And what we found was it too was reduced in the circulation of our obese subjects. You can see the representative dot plots. You're losing a subpopulation. And within any living system, if you lose a subpopulation, there are consequences. If you operate on these patients and you follow them, their iNKT cell population is restored. So it's a remedial deficiency. So we then thought, well, is this why people get everything? And Lydia Lynch went to Boston to do a study looking at a mouse where you got rid of the iNKT cell and fed it a high-fat diet, and we were looking for problems, tumours, skin disease, whatever. But actually what she found, and got on the phone to say, was that the mice were getting bigger. So if you got rid of this cell, which our own patients were getting rid of as they got obese, then you actually got bigger, twice as fat. I mean, no self-respecting mouse should have any fat, but here you've got double the fat mass. And it's reversible. If you give back the iNKT cells, then over 3 days you get a very rapid reduction in fat cell size, in insulin resistance, and it's dependent, she showed, on IL-4 and IL-10. So that made sense to me in a way when I heard it, because I was sitting down with patients who were getting rid of this iNKT cell themselves and were not understanding why they were going up in weight. So we went into the study going, weight regulates the immune system, and we came out of it going, well, the immune system is regulating weight, and that's a cycle that as endocrinologists we're kind of used to. Most things have that feedback. In 2012, we then said we're going to start looking at the children's immune system, and with a few slides, we have quite a significant cohort now of obese and lean children, mean age 12, range from 6 to 17, mean weight about 88, 90 kilos. And what we're seeing, and I thought we might see the opposite, I thought they might have a revved up immune system, but in fact they're already turning off their innate immune cells, and those cells are already not able to kill as well as they should be killing. And we then more recently have looked at their epigenetics. So our genes haven't changed in the last gazillion years, but the genes we're turning on and off all the time have, and you can measure that by measuring microRNA. And we've looked at the microRNA that's associated with diabetes and heart disease in adults, and with cancer in adults in this childhood cohort. And what we've seen is that the gene expression for diabetes and heart disease in our lean children compared to our obese, they're significantly upregulating that microRNA. And that means that at an epigenetic level, we are already delivering the 30% of people who will have type 2 diabetes in 2050. In terms of tumor suppressor gene, our cancer defense in obese children is switched off, directly proportional to their increase in weight. Again, delivering at an epigenetic level the doubling of cancers by 2030 that's predicted and is happening. More recently, we've had a quick look at the response to vaccination, and it's established that obese kids respond less well to tetanus, but we've looked at rubella and measles, and 25% of the obese kids look like they haven't been vaccinated at all, and those that respond, their antibody titer is lower. So in kids, the immune system is switching off, the genes for type 2 diabetes and heart disease are switched on, and the genes for stopping cancer are switched off. So the imperatives for prevention really are, there is no way back, or there is only 10% weight loss is achievable, because the defense against weight loss is primal and innate. The health and financial burden, I think, speak for themselves. Ilona Kickbush uses this analogy for the obesity pandemic, that we've been here before. And the Broad Street pump map dispelled the myth that cholera was caused by bad smells and walking around with a bunch of posies would protect you. He mapped deaths to pumps and said it is contamination of water by a transmissible bug. The heat map on the right is an identical map of fast food outlet density to obesity prevalence in adults and kids, and it's a single overlay. In the 1800s, they had a sanitary revolution without the benefits of email and the technology that we have. We need a public health revolution, but we're not capable of delivering it. And back in the 1800s, they even said, you know, we need to do a lot here. It's really the engineer. It's going to be very expensive. It's going to help the poor a lot more than the well-off. but we probably should still go ahead. And they did. So novel treatments for obesity, for the second part of the talk. Obesity treatment, we know, involves diet and lifestyle, pharmacotherapy, surgery, and then where is a little look to the future. Nothing works without diet and lifestyle, and at the moment, diet and lifestyle plus pharmacotherapy, at best, will deliver 10% of weight loss. And this is, again, from, these are clinical trials where people were randomized and received the intervention and were followed in a high-intensity manner. Surgery gives 30% weight loss and then stops. And really, there's only two types of surgery now that are being used, the gastric bypass and the sleeve gastrectomy. The gastric band is being abandoned. Effectively, the 5-year follow-up, and they're all been removed for multiple complications, herniation, and so on. So the band has not been done at all. And if you have the gastric bypass, you lose 30% of your starting body weight, but it flatlines. So the 190 kilo person becomes a 130 kilo person, and then there's a cutout switch, no more weight loss. They do not become a 72 kilo person. The sleeve gastrectomy is about 20% when followed out for 10 years. So we have to accept that 10% is what we can aim at realistically, and the patient's goals have to be set for that. There are huge benefits to losing 10% of your starting body weight, to mortality and to your entire cardiovascular risk profile. And in a lot of ways, we don't understand the difference. But what does surgery give you, 30%, and why does it stop? So in many ways, obesity is now where hypertension was 40 years ago. In the 1960s, there was a low-salt diet that didn't work terribly well. There was poor drugs with high side effects. There was sympathectomies that didn't really work. And then there was a gradual understanding of the beta-adrenergic system, the renin-angiotensin system, the calcium channels, and we now have very effective treatment for what was an unmanageable condition. At the moment, we have a diet that at best will deliver 10%. We have poor drugs with high side effects. We have surgery that will probably be called barbaric in 20 years' time. And we have an emerging understanding of the weight regulating systems. The currently available medications in Europe are Orlistat, and in the States they have Orlistat, which is the fat blocker. They have phentermine, which was used and then abandoned as the fen-phen combination because of cardiac problems, but in combination with the anti-epileptic topiramate, it's delivering about 5% weight loss from starting body weight. Locasirin is a serotonin-acting system, again centrally acting, delivers about 5% weight reduction. Contrave was launched last week, or not launched, licensed last week in the States. It's a combination of an anti-smoking addiction drug and an anti-alcohol addiction drug, and it comes with a warning about suicidal ideation and delivers about 5% to 10% weight loss. And GLP, glucagon-like peptide 1, one of our beloved hormones, was licensed last week by the FDA. Just briefly, why the difference between availability in Europe and the States? It's the definition of effectiveness. So in the States, they want an agent that causes 5% weight loss from baseline, statistically greater than placebo. The EMEA want an agent that causes 10% weight loss that is 5% greater than placebo. So they go the US route for obvious reasons. And we are beginning to understand the mechanisms. So how does the immune system that I showed you running around fat deliver or regulate our energy burn? Well, this is our current understanding of the mechanism, and these are known steps. The iNKT cells produce IL-10 and IL-4. When they meet with the macrophages, they tell the macrophages to produce catecholamines. The iNKT cells are also sitting in there beside fat, telling it to produce fibroblast growth factor 21. And both of those upregulate UCP and another energy burner, PGC1 alpha, that I know very little about. And those cause energy burn and weight loss. GLP-1, you will know about, and its effects on weight are considered to be central satiety and delayed gastric emptying. Well, we gave GLP-1 to a diabetes patient who had psoriasis about 2 years ago, and she came back the following week and said, look, it's great for my skin. Her itch went away and she slept. And we said, it's not the GLP, but thanks for letting us know. But she had to stop it, and her psoriasis flared. So we said, well, maybe it was. And we put her back on another GLP analog, and her psoriasis got better. So we said, well, you know, there is an effect here. The iNKT cell we were working on with our dermatology colleagues is critical in psoriasis. So we asked what we thought was a kind of a stupid question. Could GLP-1 be regulating the innate immune system? Because I had the innate immune system as above regulation. And the short answer is yes. The GLP-1 receptor is expressed on the iNKT cell, activates intracellular anti-inflammatory pathways, and is a regulator of the immune system that causes a consistent improvement in 70% of patients with psoriasis. So I've told you that the innate immune system regulates weight. Now I'm saying that hormones, and it's not going to be just GLP, we're looking at thyroid hormone, we're looking at other hormones, are regulating the innate immune system. And if you have a mechanism, then you can start exploring how things are working and affecting that mechanism. So if you can affect the innate immune cells, if you can alter your IL-4, IL-10, or FGF21, then you will be affecting metabolism and weight, and that will be independent of simple energy in and energy out, the simple equation we use when thinking about body weight. So what does GLP do? Well, GLP increases your innate invariant natural killer T cell population and also has a direct effect on macrophages. So it impacts on 2 stages of those mechanisms, and we have completed a study that shows that approximately 30% of the weight effect of GLP is mediated through the action on the innate immune system. A mechanism like that also allows you to look at, well, what do we already know? So we know that insulin inhibits IL-10. We know that insulin causes weight gain. So is part of insulin's weight gain due to the switch off of thermogenesis? And we know that cigarette smoke bumps up IL-4 production from regulatory T cells, again, flipping your energy burn in a positive direction. And then finally, just for some other therapeutic approaches that don't really work or may work, you can have a pacemaker, and they're still working on pacemakers to deliver reverse your peristaltic movement in the stomach and make you feel sick. You can have balloons. Still, they're working on balloons and licensing balloons, which we have stopped and are not really being used anymore. But you can now have a pacemaker and a bypass, and you're not talking about the heart, you're talking about the stomach. This, I think, is one that we are going to be seeing a lot more of, and we're beginning to use. It's the intestinal liner, or the endobarrier. And you may have heard about it from Edna Roach in her session on obesity, but it's a device that's placed endoscopically. This is deployed at the pylorus, and then you get 1 meter, or thereabouts 80 centimeters of a liner that the food slips down through. And the other thing is that the bile salts don't mix with the food till later, so you get raw bile going down the early part of the duodenum and jejunum, and that seems to be an important factor. So the future, a bit like hypertension, is going to be combinations. But at the moment, the intestinal liner plus GLP-1 in combination has, for the first time, the potential to deliver the same results as gastric surgery. Medication plus bile salts, I mentioned briefly. Bile salts seem to deliver quite a bit of the gastric bypass weight loss mechanism not yet understood. And medication plus the gut microflora or fecal transplantation, which has already been used for some conditions, is being talked about for obesity. And certainly the gut microflora is intimately involved with the innate T cells in the wall of the gut mucosa. And we are beginning to interrogate that axis in terms of the immune system regulating weight. And just to finish with a couple of slides from the child's view of obesity from Sinead Murphy, who runs a child weight management clinic in Temple Street. A 5-year-old who says nobody in my class will play with me. A 14-year-old, they slag me because I get red and sweaty. A 15-year-old who won't go outside anymore. And they're in every city in every country now. So obesity is irreversible, 90%, and a vicious cycle with our current treatments. The health burden is enormous. Obese children are not happy, and new effective treatments will come, but surely prevention is better and certainly cheaper than cure. And we just need a very different attitude to the way we are allowing industry to effectively target and attack our kids. Thank you very much.